Welcome to the Eclectic Gamers Podcast. Today is Sunday, January 24th. This is episode 132? 33?
132. Oh, no.
132.
Yeah.
It's 132. Okay.
We have two copies of it in our OneNote. I think
that's what I was noticing. Is like, why are there two 132s in the note list?
Yeah, I saw that the other day also, and it was like, what the... Like, when I tried to make the copy last night to start it. And I was just like,
yeah.
I ended up with a double, and I thought I deleted it. Now I've tried to delete it again, so we should only be on the good one.
Okay, that works. I was just like weirded out for a second. I'm like, why is there... All right.
When the people are like, "We don't understand," and like, you aren't supposed to understand. Just accept that this is what our life is. But yes, this is 130.
You're seeing how the sausage is made. That's all you're doing. You see how the sausage is made.
But this is actually 133.
It is actually 132.
Yes. So maybe we inadvertently lost the notes to 132.
We must have overwritten the notes to 1.
Which is okay because we were done with that show. But I have now renamed it so it says 133 in the OneNote, and I've confirmed because I actually, when I work on the final projects, I name them by episode number, and I have the last 5 of the projects still, and so 132 was the last one we did on the 10th. So
okay,
this is 133. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome to 133. Okay,
I'm Dennis.
I'm Tony.
The rest of the episode will go a lot smoother than this. We promise. We super promise.
Maybe we'll see what happens. Possibly.
Tony, it's been a couple weeks since we did 132. So
it has.
So what's happened before 133 has started here?
Before 133 has started here in the last 2 weeks, I had mentioned that I was doing another playthrough, career playthrough of BattleTech. I finished that, and I noticed when I had finished it that my total BattleTech playtime, I thought I would share, was just over 405 hours.
That's a lot.
I decided maybe it was enough time playing vanilla BattleTech, so I installed mods. And now I'm up to 430 hours of playtime.
It's a lot of BattleTech.
That's a lot of BattleTech. So I don't think it is my most played game. I'm pretty sure it is my second most played game right now. No, it is my most played game. So, by like double. So,
yeah, as I say, it's, I mean, if you were to combine series, like maybe Civilization would pass it if you combine multiple versions of the game. But
yeah, I think Civ 5 is up there. I know for the longest time, Torchlight was one of my highest, and it's only in the 250 hour range. So it's and Civ 5's 220 hours. So it's like double my next most played game from the look of it. So I have a problem. Maybe? Question mark?
Maybe.
I don't know. But the new mod, there's like 3 major mods for this game, and they're basically how far from the vanilla game and towards tabletop play and extra stuff you add. I have installed the lowest tier of them that adds basically a whole lot more systems. It goes from just a little corner of the galaxy to the entire inner sphere and most of the major periphery nations, and adds like all of the mechs, and it adds pulls straight from lore and has an actual running timeline, and as you hit the day that things happened in lore in the game, those things happen. So when major wars start, when planets change hands and are captured, the map will actually change to match the ongoing changes in the timeline. So,
and this is like a third-party mod?
Yeah, this is a third-party mod, and it's been awesome. Like, almost addictively fun. So, and it's because the original game started in 3025 and lasted for a couple of years, basically. This mod that I'm playing specifically starts in 3025, and the timeline stuff ends in 3057. And my goal is to push all the way through if I can. So we'll see. I'm currently in 3026.
I think you can do it. I believe in you.
Yeah.
It might take a few more hours, though.
Yeah, a couple more. I think the next big thing to happen is the fourth succession war starts in 3028, and that lasts a couple or 3 years. And then there's just little stuff, and then there's the War of 3039, and then the next thing after that is the clan invasion in 3049. So I got a ways to go. But in addition to all that, my wife got a new puppy. We went and picked a new puppy up, and that involved a road trip to southern Missouri. And man, I can't tell you how much I had missed like doing road trips and stuff until I actually did a road trip. It was just a great day. Just the drive. I mean, yeah, getting the puppy and doing all that stuff, that was great too. But just the drive and the seeing stuff and being new places was something I've missed. I might have to do another long, ambling drive for no reason other than the drive thing here before too long. Because it just made for a nice, fun-filled, fulfilling day of not just being trapped down at home or work.
Well, they say variety is the spice of life. And your favorite variety is the drive around in car variety.
Yeah. I am one of those people. I enjoy driving. I like windshield time.
Well, I haven't gone anywhere. I don't get no drive time. Except to and from the office, which I've so far been able to do still just weekly, even though the legislative session's going. They've made some changes in light of coronavirus, so a lot of the stuff is remote. And I think they spent $10 million on upgrades, and unfortunately, their system doesn't show it as well as you might have hoped. So that's been unfortunate. But in terms of on-topic sort of stuff, I did finish Maneater, the game where you play as a shark.
How was it?
It was okay. I think I struggled at first. I didn't realize how to move on. And so I was in an area that I was really too high for too long. And I felt like it was taking forever to make any progress. And once I realized that I could actually go to another section, like it wasn't going to just warp me to a new zone after I cleared everything in the starter zone, it started to go a lot faster, and I was able to better maximize my shark because it started to get awfully repetitive. And I think had I not done that, it probably would have felt like a really good balanced game. But given my overtime in the starter zone, it ran long. Like I felt like I was doing the same stuff for too much, but I think that's my own fault.
Yeah.
So it's all right. It's an okay game. It's fairly mindless. It's pretty simplistic. And so since then, I have been playing Doom Eternal, the sequel to Doom 2016.
Awesome soundtrack. Fun game.
It's very metal. I think I'm near the end. For those that have played the game, I have finished the Con Maker fight. So as of this morning. So I think I'm near the end of the game. I expect I'll probably be done with it here in the next week, and then I will have to pick something else to move on to. I haven't decided exactly what yet, but no, it's time. We got to keep moving. I got stuff. I'm thinking maybe Control. I have Control. That was a Christmas gift. And I think that'll probably be the next game I go ahead and play. But speaking of games, we have some stuff to talk about. Not a ton, but a little bit in both pinball and video games.
It's that time of year.
It is, as is the nature of early winter sorts of stuff. It's usually a fairly slow time. So let's go ahead and start with pinball like we normally would. And so I have three things here for us to cover. One is your topic that we'll end with, and I think it's probably going to be the one that's most interesting. But to get through the news items first, which are the first two. The first is just a quick update. Pinball Industry Awards. I do have a link in the show notes to the website if people want to get additional information. But the awards ceremony is set to be on January 28th. That's going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern, and I believe that will be via YouTube Premiere. That's my understanding of the plan. And so if you're interested in that, you tune in. And since it'll be on YouTube after the fact, you can always see the recording if that is of note. Second news item is Pinball Hall of Fame. So the Pinball Hall of Fame, which is located in Las Vegas, they have set up a GoFundMe because they have run out of funds while they're in the process of constructing their new building. And I don't know, Tony, do you recall? I think the new building's that started before COVID. I think it's been about 18 months or so.
I thought the original talking about it, and then I thought construction started before COVID.
Yeah, I think so.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it did.
So anyway, nutshell summary is it's basically a $10 million project. And so the proprietor of the Pinball Hall of Fame, Tim Arnold, has set up a $200,000 GoFundMe to try and complete raising of the funds that he believes he needs to finish the building off. And my understanding of the reason for the shortfall is they sold their building on Tropicana, where the Hall of Fame has been located, and they've been leasing it and continuing to operate. But because of the pandemic, they are not bringing in nearly as enough money as their projections had. So it has not generated the funds that they thought would close the gap out to finish the build. That's my understanding of the nutshell summary. Tim has participated in an interview. It's split into two parts with Uncle Pinball's podcast. I do have a link to both of those episodes in the show notes. So if people want to hear Tim, I know some people online have asked a lot of questions about why doesn't he sell more games, or why didn't he consider this or that? And some of those are answered in those interviews. So it's a good place to turn regarding that. As of the time that Tony and I are recording this episode, the GoFundMe has raised a little over $75,000, and the target amount is $200,000. So, my assessment at this point, given that this all broke about just over a week ago, really. So I don't think he's going to get the $200,000 because, as we know, just like Kickstarters, it's like first day, last day is when most of the money comes in. And so I think most of I mean, maybe he'll get to 100,000. I don't know, but I just don't see it happening. This is my assessment. Not everyone's on board with this. There has been a lot of skepticism expressed, namely on Pinside, but I've even had some people reach out to me asking some questions about, if the nonprofit is run well, is this a good use of money? Is this the appropriate should we be supporting someone that's trying to put in a new building rather than support someone that is just trying to keep operating? Because, I mean, when you look at it on the surface and you say, who does a $10 million build in the middle of a pandemic sort of thing? So I have not researched this charity. I don't have the time to do it. So I can't tell you whether or not it's, in my opinion, if it's well run or not well run. A lot of people really like the Pinball Hall of Fame. A lot of people don't like the way that this is going about, but that's not unusual for such a large ask in the middle of unprecedented times. So anyway, It's the interesting news that's happening. So here we are, just reporting the facts. Yeah.
It's one of those things that you do what feels right for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't really have an opinion one way or another, as to, is this a good use of funds or not? It's because it is a nonprofit. It's, I believe, tax deductible. At least normally straight donations to the organization would be. I don't know if GoFundMe complicates that or not, but I'm sure if you're concerned, you can always reach out to Tim and ask him about doing something else with getting a notice or something if GoFundMe doesn't provide you with what you need for your tax forms or whatever.
Yeah, I have very limited experience with GoFundMe. So
yeah, I can't think. I don't know if I've ever used it to send anyone money. I don't think I have. So now we're ready for our last pinball topic, and this is the Tony topic, and this is going to be the fun one. So Tony, why don't you explain your idea here? Because you brought this up with me several days ago, and I thought, this is easily going to be our pinball content for this episode.
Yeah, well, this is one of those things where I'm going to preface it with how I got to where I was. I was reading the sequel to Ready Player One, Ready Player Two, which I've now completed the read of. And I realized while reading it, because if anybody's read Ready Player One or seen the movie or anything like that, it's just a giant nostalgia fest. Ready Player Two is more of the same. Like the first one, it has a lot of references to John Hughes. Actually, if anything, it has more references to John Hughes. And it got me thinking that, you know what? we always talk about licensed themes, and people have been so excited talking about Goonies and other licensed themes from the 80s and 70s, Goonies, Wonka, all that. What John Hughes movie would be the best choice to be made into a pinball machine for nostalgia reasons? Now, if you've never looked up John Hughes on IMDb, I highly recommend you do it, because we had to go ahead and throw in a caveat on this. We're only going to go with the John Hughes directed movies, because that pulls us down to just 8 movies, as opposed to his writer movies that he wrote, which is in the 50s.
Yeah, he wrote a lot, and he produced over 20 films too, so that's even a pretty extensive list. So, and directing really fits with your narrative, because they're all from the 80s except one was from 91. So it really does stick with the 80s quite well.
And honestly, these 8 are the ones that most of the time when people talk about a John Hughes movie, these are the movies they're referencing.
Yeah, I agree. It's usually what's directed. That's often the case with writer-directors. It's usually, we think of the director as the person who has the most ownership over the film.
Right. So just to get started, I'm going to go through the 8 movies real quick, and then we'll start discussing thoughts and merits.
Okay.
We're going to start chronologically from the first one, 16 Candles, then The Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, She's Having a Baby, Uncle Buck, and Curly Sue.
Are there any of these you haven't seen?
No.
I can't remember if I've seen She's Having a Baby.
I've seen She's Having a Baby once.
Okay.
I remember specifically because of several of the scenes with Kevin Bacon are recognizable to me.
Well, I can tell you something. She's not having a pinball machine, that's for sure.
Yeah.
If you've seen it once and I can't remember it, I don't think she's going to do very well. But
no,
I'm just speculating.
Well, it's the same way with Curly Sue. I saw it once.
I saw it in theaters.
I don't recall seeing it in theaters. I just recall seeing it.
I think a lot of people do not think of Curly Sue when they think of John Hughes movies, but I do.
It does not fall into what I consider John. Well, the thing is we go through these, but certain movies that I consider a quintessential John Hughes movie isn't in this list of movies he directed.
Now,
because it doesn't include Pretty in Pink,
right?
It doesn't include Mr. Mom. Those are both John Hughes movies that are some of the first movies that pop up into my head when I think
because he wrote them.
He wrote them, but he didn't direct them. So
I always think of he wrote Home Alone, so that's one that stands out to me. He wrote the dog movies, the Beethoven movies are his.
Yep,
for writing credit. Uncle Buck.
Well, Oh,
did he direct Uncle Buck? Oh, there's another one. Oh, The Great Outdoors.
That's right.
The Great Outdoors
also.
Which I probably think of as a John Candy movie first before Uncle Buck, but
yeah, no, it's he actually had, I think he had, let's see, between Uncle Buck and Great Outdoors, and then John Candy was also in Vacation, the original Vacation.
Yep.
So that's 3 movies with John Candy right there. So we could do a whole nother list of these. That is what John Candy movie best deserves to be a pinball machine.
You know what? That will be a fun one, but we'll hold that for the future because I love me some John Candy. So
me too. So staying with just these 8, and we've already knocked off. Let's say pretty obviously, She's Having a Baby is not going to make the list for our choice of this.
Now I have a question.
Yes.
I'm saying we're going to try and pick for us what we think which one would make the best pinball machine. But I'm curious, which one of these 8 do you think is his best movie? Because that's not necessarily the same thing.
Interesting.
Because if I were to say what I think the public thinks, I think it's one of 2. I think it's either The Breakfast Club or it's Ferris Bueller.
Right. I think that was probably where even there, I think I'm going to have to I think the public would probably go with one of those two, depending upon when they grew up, because I have talked to people in the past who have a very strong affinity for 16 Candles.
Yeah, but all these movies are like within 2 years of each other.
Right, but they're also very different feel, and
That's
they
true.
appeal to different people because 16 of Candles is appealing to a very different demographic than Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
I agree. And I would say also, for those that are more into the straight up comedy style, I think Planes, Trains, and Automobiles might actually rise to the top of their list.
See, and that's where I was debating between Ferris and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Well, I think Planes, Trains is a lot funnier than Ferris Bueller.
Right. I think Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is probably the best holiday movie ever made.
See, I don't love it I prefer Ferris Bueller to Planes, Trains.
Oh, see, I prefer Planes, Trains. I don't mind Ferris Bueller, but I prefer Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It is one of those movies that's just it hits the whole holiday thing just perfect for me, and it's hilarious.
Okay, so those are our thoughts of kind of where we think most people and us are. Like, I guess if I were to pick of all these, which do I think would be seen as his best movie, I would go with Ferris Bueller, but that's not necessarily what I would pick for Pinball, though.
Right, and I will say, I think Ferris Bueller has solid arguments for a pinball game, because it can definitely have the kind of story and mode flow built into it with how the game plays. I just don't know that it would be the best for that. We'll start here. We'll go over each of them just a little bit, thinking about them as a pinball machine. And I honestly cannot figure out how to make 16 Candles a good pinball machine. I thought about it since we first talked about this. I've thought about it. And in all honesty, it's not in this list. I think it'd be easier to make Pretty in Pink than 16 Candles.
Yeah,
but
I mean, it's just like one of the things I try and go to when I think about designing a game around a known theme is like, what toy or toys would I do? And there's just nothing like, I'm not saying you couldn't find things like the cake with the candles or something, but it's like, there's nothing that just is iconic visually to me about that movie.
No. I mean, really, the iconic visual thing about that movie is a young Molly Ringwald.
Right.
That's it.
Well, because I mean, the whole movie is about her like constantly being embarrassed. So there's not a set piece. It's just, I mean, it's a romantic comedy. I don't know how to make it work. Maybe if I was smarter, I could, but I just don't.
And if you have an idea, let us know.
Yeah. Write into eclecticgamerspodcast@gmail.com.
Because I would be really interested to hear it.
All right. So we're both in agreement that we can't make 16 Candles work.
Right. So we'll go next. Breakfast Club. Once again, Molly Ringwald vehicle. Probably one of the most iconic 80s teen films out there. Good soundtrack. I can see this. It has enough interesting story and plot points and stuff where you could lay out some rules. You could do some interesting things with it. I still have a problem coming up with a really good toy. Yeah,
I don't have a great toy in mind, but the nice thing is because it almost, not obviously not quite, but it almost is a one scene movie. So the setting of doing the layout around the detention area of the school is obvious, and
right,
getting you that immersion, that wild under glass of feeling like you're shooting the ball in the detention area. That part I think lends itself really well because the Breakfast Club doesn't have a whole lot of scenes outside of that.
No, it is very much a ship in the bottle type thing.
I mean, maybe for a toy, cribbing a little bit from the iconic photo with them all sitting on the railing. and doing something with like a railing, maybe having an elaborate ramp that is the railing. Maybe that's a ball lock. I could see something like that.
Something like that, or I could see doing a dancing video mode type thing that pops up on the screen.
And since there are 5 of them in the detention, I think it lends itself to saying you can easily have 5 shots that are corresponding to those characters to collect them. And you could do some simple, like, the guy, the maybe do the leather jacket for the jock, the fingerless leather glove for the punk sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely think there is some solid things you could do with that. So, Breakfast Club works better than 16 Candles.
Yeah, I think it works quite a bit better.
Now, to the one that, I don't always think about this being a John Hughes movie.
I didn't remember it was.
But I do think it has good potential as a pinball machine is, of course, Weird Science. Because it has the potential through the sheer amount of kind of crazy things that happen and the way the story builds up and the big party at the end and all the interactions. I think there's some fun stuff you could do. Plus, it's hard to go wrong when you've got a movie with Bill Paxton in it.
True.
And he plays a monster. There's actually so many people that I don't think about being in this movie because I mainly think about this movie, Anthony Michael Hall, but I mean, Bill Paxton's in this movie. Robert Downey Jr.'s in this movie. It's kind of surprising, actually, but I think it could have some decent potential.
Now, it's been a long time since I've seen that. I don't remember this movie as well as some of the others. I do think in terms of a toy, you could use a computer as the centralized toy.
Right.
Given the concept of them designing the woman. There's some stuff from the film that had there are other things though. I think there's a scene with a girl in the chimney, so you could do something with a chimney.
Yeah, there's
I still like the computer idea better.
I think the computer idea would be probably the best. And again, then you run into the whole what are you playing into, because this movie was so 1980s geek stereotype thing. I don't know a good way to put it. I'd say I think it might fit in better with the aesthetic of pinball in the 80s than the aesthetic of pinball today.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. This one, it has potential. It's so wacky that there's a lot of weird stuff you could do. Again, it was Weird Science. There's a lot of weird stuff you could really get away with. It could make for a pretty funny pin. I'd say funnier than, either 16 Candles or The Breakfast Club would be. But as we move down this list, there are much better options, I think, than Weird Science. I
agree. All right. So that moves us up to Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And yeah,
don't DMCA me,
movie,
please.
Yeah.
Please, I didn't do a good impression, please.
Someone's beating on your door. What's that sound?
It's the recording companies of America. They're mad. They want their money. Nirvana sent them for me, and it's not even their song. Napster throwback for everyone who didn't know about that. Okay. Actually, it wasn't Nirvana, was it? It was Metallica. Dang it, Metallica. I screwed it up. I'm leaving that in.
We'll just leave it in. It happens. We're not perfect.
We'll do it live. We're doing it live. All right, so Ferris Bueller, as I noted, I think of these 8 movies, his strongest.
Yeah, of these 8 movies, I think it's up there. I prefer Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, but I think most people will agree with you.
I think the broad public. I am the everyman. You are the elitist scum.
I'm the elitist scum at this point.
So
but, yeah, I think you're right. I think most people will agree with you.
So Ferris Bueller, guy cutting class, and going on zany adventure.
Yeah, it's zany, fun adventure stuff. It lends itself to a linear storyline building up towards a wizard mode. It leads itself to all sorts of things you can do. The parade singing scene would be beautiful for a hurry up with very specific targets to continue the song, stuff like that. I think this one is the best of the ones we've seen so far.
Yeah. Now, and there's so much stuff toys wise that, I mean, you could do something around the car. You could do something around Ferris's room, because he had that elaborate, like you've got the baseball glove and the audio recording of him being sick, and just take one of those and make it something in the game you could get away with. Something from the parade as well could be done. Yeah, it would lend itself really well to either a linear approach, or you could still, ultimately the wizard mode is try and get back home before your parents, and you just do the various stuff from the movie in any order you want, like parade, or trying to roll back the odometer, or Cameron falling in the pool.
That wouldn't be a bad toy right there. Where if you could set something up and have the when you hit it, so it looks like the garage, and then you hit it and the car pops out of the garage like it's falling. That'd be be a pretty cool toy.
Or a shot, or you hit something and you see a Rooney with his pant leg shredded getting on and off the bus.
Yeah. Oh,
a gummy bear. We have to put their worms are in the pocket.
Have a gummy bear.
Pocket gummy bear.
But,
pocket gummy bear. Hurry up, because you got to eat them while they're still warm.
The car garage thing would make for a solid ball lock. You lock the balls, and then when it releases, it pops out, and balls start dropping out of it. Yeah.
So
I was something like, I think it's got a lot of potential, and I mean, that's tough. I think if I was going to push here for getting somebody to do call-outs for that game, I'd want Alan Ruck.
Yeah,
I mean,
probably reasonably achievable.
Would be the obvious one, but I think Alan Ruck would actually work better.
I think, I mean, in some ways, it's almost like Cameron was the third eye viewer of a lot of the stuff going on, because obviously it's him and it's Ferris and Ferris's girlfriend, Sloane, I think was her name.
Sloane,
in the movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think so. I would agree. Alan Ruck would be my pick.
Yeah, because it always felt like that Cameron was the audience member,
unless
in everything.
Unless you wanted to go ahead and do something really more off the wall, like get Ben Stein.
You could.
I mean, what's he doing now? We're not winning his money anymore.
Yeah, I have no idea what Ben Stein's doing anymore.
No, he's probably retired.
I would assume so. Let me see.
Because he's mid-70s, I think.
Yeah, he was born in 1944. He had something come out as recently as 2019, but it was just voice acting.
He was in the last Sharknado.
The last Sharknado. So.
Yeah. No, I see they have something announced with him coming up, so I guess he is still somewhat active. He doesn't do a lot. He doesn't do a lot of stuff, but that's all.
He doesn't really need to do a lot of stuff.
He's never been prolific.
No. And a lot of what he did was TVs and voice stuff.
Okay. So of these first four, I think, regardless of my opinion of Ferris Bueller as a movie, which is pretty high, I think it's the strongest of the four thus far.
I think so. But this moves us to
your
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It is. Not just because it contains, Steve Martin and John Candy in what is arguably the best movie either of them were in. And that's saying a lot, because John Candy and Steve Martin were both had a lot of good movies, and for them both to be in this movie and it be so strong, I quite enjoyed it. I think the whole story here, much like in Ferris Bueller, works because it's just a series of linked attempts to get home, because you've got, the airport's closed, and the car rental issues, and the just everything they have to go through to continue this entire trip back home lends itself to modes, and it's just so darn funny.
Yeah, and this is one that I've seen a few times, but it's been a while since. toy wise, this would be a game that works really well around this theme, though. Just because of the you have all the vehicular things you could build around as set pieces. You could do 1 to 3 easily. It's just easily, and there's other stuff from just the weird element. I mean, you could do something involving the cab, or you do something about the. I'm trying with one of the desk clerk scenarios, inside the rental place or something.
Right?
You doesn't have to just be around a vehicle itself either. So,
and they could steal toys from other games already, because just John Candy's character always has that enormous trunk that he's taking with him everywhere. I know they've got leftover trunk ball locks from. Was it Aerosmith that had the trunk ball lock?
I'm kind of imagining if you had a scoop trunk shot as another alternative rather than a ball lock, where you shoot the trunk and it's just like behind a scoop, and
right.
That's the mystery award is what comes out of his trunk.
Yeah, that
big points. Yeah. Everyone's favorite award, big points, not small points. Big points.
So yeah, no, I think this one has a lot of potential. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I don't know that it would sell as well as Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, maybe not, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't be the best pinball machine.
True. I have a harder time on this one, too, trying to figure out. I mean, with Ferris Bueller, it was obvious. It felt real obvious to me who would work well for call-outs. And on this one, unless you could somehow get Steve Martin, I think you'd pretty much just have generic call-outs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we can't have John Candy. No one. I mean, the movie revolves around those two. So, honestly, you probably just end up with a generic call-out person, because I doubt you get Steve Martin willing to do it. But
right.
But I mean, that would be the ideal, and in fact, it's really the only logical related to the film option that you have. So,
yeah,
that's unfortunate, but I mean, nothing can be done around that.
That's just life.
Yeah, that's just how it is.
That's just how it is.
Do you want to talk She's Having a Baby or no?
I don't remember enough of that movie. I remember bits and pieces. Not enough. I don't think there's any chance.
I guess the toy would be a baby. That's it. And no one wants to bash a baby. That's mean.
Let's be fair. It would honestly need to have a bash toy that just looks like Kevin Bacon. just to have a Kevin Bacon bash toy. Whatever excuse you can do to have a Kevin Bacon bash toy.
And every time you bash him, he says lines, but none of them are from She's Having a Baby. They're from all his other films.
Yeah, it's just, You use it as a thing, but in all actuality, it's just the Kevin Bacon game.
Just because of the Kevin Bacon. I just want random Kevin Bacon movie toy. Okay, so we're gonna, due to ignorance and lack of a lot of experience with it, we're not really gonna address She's Having a Baby.
Which moves us up to Uncle Buck.
I love Uncle Buck. In fact, for me, I like it more than Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Really?
I've seen it a lot more. I am more of a John Candy fan than I am a Steve Martin fan, and so a vehicle oriented entirely around John Candy almost inherently is more preferable to me. Even though I like Steve Martin's work, he's not. Yeah, he's not like a. Trying to think of a comedian I like. Chevy Chase. I'm not a big Chevy Chase fan, but John Candy, Uncle Buck. Oh my gosh! So
it's so funny. It's got so many things going for it.
Right. So for those that don't know, Uncle Buck is about Uncle Buck is a bachelor. He has a girlfriend, but his family contacts him to basically babysit his nephew and nieces, and he is not used to suburban life. So he's coming from the city. He's a smoker. He's got all these bad habits. And so he comes in and he's just like this fun loving guy in this stuffy suburb.
And crass. He's so crass.
Yes. And so it's just, and then zany antics ensue. So all right, there's so much that could work with this though. I mean, the hatchet from the trunk could be a toy. How about a quarter? And you shoot the quarter shot to be able to go to buy a rat to gnaw a mole off of this mean teacher principal's face. You've got the washing machine scene where it looks like he's having some lewd behavior with him bashing the washing machine, trying to get it to work. So it's got, like Ferris Bueller, I think the toys on this one are real easy to do.
Oh, I think so. I mean, even between all of those, the pancake, just a giant pancake. You thought Breaking Bad Pizza on a Roof was a big deal. Back in the 80s, we had pancake on a plate. So yeah, no, it. Oh man, yeah, that would be really, really good.
It's less iconic. It was like only a $15 million movie or something. It's not on the same level, I guess, as a lot of these others, but just to me, the whole idea, the fish out of water, but it being a city guy not going like sticking him out on a farm like you would with Pauly Shore, but just putting him in the suburbs and what that meant in the 80s. I thought it works really well. A lot of the tension between him and the teenage niece, and Bug. Hey, maybe that's who you get the call out. It's Jay Underwood, the guy who played Bug, the boyfriend.
Yeah. Yeah, let
me make sure he's still alive. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, he is. He's still acting.
Because let's see, John Kennedy, Macaulay Culkin. Oh yeah, he was the
nephew.
He was the nephew.
There's a toy, the mailbox, the mail slot in the door, because he talks through that before. That's how he's the one doing all the screening to let people in.
Yeah, no, I think that one would have a lot of
all the
potential.
modes. The mode with the drunk Pooter the clown. Don't forget about Pooter.
Yeah, no, that's definitely. I think you could have a lot of fun with that one. And then the last one would obviously be Curly Sue.
Yes, Curly Sue is. I mean, I think all the John Hughes movies he directed all kind of fit in the same basic concept of what they're not all. They're all sort of these light comedies in a way, but. This one was, it's a Jim Belushi vehicle, and him and his daughter are basically scammers. So they make people think they're trying to eat, essentially. It's not the whole dirty rotten scoundrel sort of like high.
Yeah, they're not the high level
artist
grifter type.
Right. This is more like really like low rent kind of scams. And so the movie revolves around a rich woman who thinks that she's hit Jim Belushi with her car, and they're trying to get a meal out of it, but ultimately they start to get to know each other, and they bond, and all of that is what goes on. And the little girl Curly Sue is a key instrument in a lot of these scams. So I liked the movie okay when I've seen it. I mentioned earlier that I actually did see this one in the theaters, but there's not other. I mean, the toy, would probably be the car that hits Belushi, but like there's nothing. This is not a good movie to do. I don't think.
No.
There's not. It's not. I don't think it's a particularly strong movie. It's okay. It's heartwarming, but there's nothing about it that screams pinball to me. So I just don't. Again, it's one of those like 16 Candles. I don't really know how I make it work. I think I could make it work better than 16 Candles, but not by much.
Right. It's just one of those. Yeah. Things.
It's like trying to take. I mean, it's not a law drama though. I think the woman in it is a lawyer, but it's like trying to take a law drama and make a pinball game out of it. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, there's no good way to do it.
Other than maybe liar, liar. I don't know what you do.
Well, my cousin Vinny could actually be fun.
Okay, but to be fair, so much of that involves what happens outside of the court. My cousin Vinny would be great though. Oh god, now I want to talk about the mud and the tires, trying to rent a suit, the pool hustler. Okay, but that's not John Hughes directed movie.
That's not.
How
John
dare
Hughes
you bring that up though? How dare you?
Now
sir?
We've got all sorts
How
of.
Dare you, sir?
Yeah, sorry.
You will apologize to the listeners.
I'm sorry for taking us off topic.
Tony, what's a ute?
I'm sorry.
What's a ute?
What's a ute?
How do you like your grits? Darn it, I'm going to be stuck on that all day now. I'm going to be yelling my cousin Vinny quotes during the Chiefs game.
still slightly off topic of John Hughes for just 1 second.
Okay.
Another older movie that I think would be a lot of fun and work really well as a pinball machine, and has an amazing amount of star power for what it is. Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, I've heard people suggest that one. I read people have suggested that one before.
I mean, that could be a lot of fun with the obvious toys. But that's just, yeah.
I'd rather see a Rocky Horror myself, but whatever.
Rocky Horror would be enjoyable. So
I like the musical numbers better. And you've still got just as many fun toys, though maybe not as iconic as a man-eating plant.
True. Maybe less family friendly.
I don't know about the full-on PG mode. I don't know if it's worth putting in or not, but
yeah, it would definitely be. But I mean, Tim Curry at the height of his power. But back to where we started with John Hughes. So I think it's real easy to tell from our talking about this that we're looking at Ferris, Uncle Buck, and maybe Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is where we think the top 3 selections for a pinball machine.
That's my general read. With, I guess, if we needed a 4th position, it'd probably be Breakfast Club based off of what you said. But yeah, I mean, so
how about this? Let's cut this to 2. And then we'll throw it on the Facebook, because doesn't Facebook allow 2 votes?
I don't know if we can do that anymore after they did their modification. That's why I quit doing those votes.
Did they get rid of that?
When they made their new version, you could not on group pages anymore do a poll.
Oh.
So
I hadn't realized that, because you always made the polls. So.
Right. And that's why I stopped us doing the, which of our 6, that's why I stopped the Build-A-Bank, was I couldn't do the vote anymore. And that made me sad.
I thought you were just tired of winning.
No, I'm never tired of victory. I'm checking under the system to see if that got in it, because a lot of people complained. I didn't run into the problem myself. I thankfully I had read about people running into that problem before I had tried. So I had learned from other podcasts that they were no longer able to ask. Like there's not in the. So I don't think we can.
There's not a create a poll thing anymore.
So given that, again, lesson until they return. I mean, we could do a poll through another service like we used to, but we get far less interaction when we would do things like Google polls than we did back with the Facebook. What were you thinking? Come on. Those polls were useful.
They were.
So I'm afraid it's down to just us. I mean, people can write into eclecticgamerspodcast@gmail.com to tell us what they would pick.
And tell us why we're wrong with what we choose.
And we can read those on the next episode. So we invite you to do that, but I'm afraid it's down to us, Tony. So, but I don't object to the idea of dropping it down to 2. For us. Though I don't know if it matters.
I don't think it matters if it's just us.
Okay. Well,
I think.
What, do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first? How do you want to do it?
Oh, doesn't matter. Either way, I can go first. I think, as much as I love it, and as much as I do consider it the quintessential holiday movie, I think Planes, Trains, and Automobiles doesn't have the same impact that Uncle Buck or Ferris Bueller would have.
Really?
Yes. I think both of those are probably more popular, just because I've talked to more people who've seen those 2 and enjoyed those 2 than Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Well, let's pull some numbers from IPDB real quick. So the gross for Uncle Buck was $66.7 million, or worldwide gross, $79 million for Uncle Buck. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles was $49.5 million, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off was $70.7 million. So Uncle Buck made the most out of those 3, but it's also 1989. So the, dollars, inflation, we got to factor a little bit of that in.
And then if you include like the Metascore, the Metacritic has Planes, Trains, and Automobiles with a 72, Uncle Buck with a 51. and Ferris Bueller's Day Off with a 61.
Really? So there, Planes, Trains is the highest. Fascinating.
But when you look at the popularity on IMDb, we've got Planes, Trains, and Automobiles at 2,400. Uncle Buck at 694. And Ferris Bueller's sitting at 790.
Yeah, I think maybe the stars will make the most sense there because those numbers are weird to me. So
yeah, because those numbers are based on like people voting, and they kind of shift around a lot.
Yeah, Ferris Bueller is a 7.8 out of 10 on IMDb. Planes, Trains is 7.6, so pretty close, and Uncle Buck is down at 7. So they're all between 7 and 8, but
right, they're all there.
But in that, so depending on the metric, different ones of these are in the lead.
Right. And I think that's where it's hard to make the choice because I think they're all excellent movies. I think they're all hilarious movies. Though the one that feels the most John Hughesy is Ferris. I know they're all John Hughes movies, but again, when I think John Hughes movies, I don't always think some of these movies.
Right.
Because of the box he's been put in. Yeah, let's go with that.
So your pick for Pinball Machine would be Ferris Bueller.
I think Ferris would be the most well-received, and definitely I think it would probably sell the best.
I agree with you, but I'm picking Uncle Buck because I don't care what the people want. I'm giving them what they need.
They
need Uncle Buck. Uncle Buck will be a lot more fun as a pinball machine. It just will be. I don't care that the movie's not as strong. I don't care that it's not as popular. It's more fun. It's more funny. John Candy blows the cast of Ferris Bueller out of the water. That's what I'm going with. And I think it's, even if as a movie, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is better written, I think Uncle Buck as a standalone for using pinball with the Planes, Trains would be good too. But I just think, Uncle Buck.
I think Planes and Trains, like I said, it is my favorite holiday movie, but
Uncle Buck, I can get a call out person like a Macaulay Culkin or someone to do something with it. With Planes, Trains, we're basically down to Steve Martin and that's it. So there's more flexibility with Uncle Buck. There's some really funny set pieces that work really well for either of them. So I'm going to say, let's just do Uncle Buck. We could set it up in a variety of different ways that the rules could go about. Whereas, Planes, Trains might be a little more structured around the various movie set pieces. Of course, you'll probably end up with that with Uncle Buck as well. But which ones you choose to use, I think there's a lot of flexibility with Uncle Buck, just because there's so many little scenes that are all really funny. So it's like, do you want the scene where you're playing as John Candy trying to find his niece before she is violated by her boyfriend? That's an option. Do you want the washing machine scene? That's an option. But you don't have to do all of that. It's not, I don't think it sells the best. It's definitely not the best of his 8 movies that we went over. I don't care. That's what I'm picking. It would be a very fun pinball machine. And it is my job. It is my moral obligation.
It is your job to
my moral obligation, Tony, as a podcaster, to tell the people what they need. It's my job to be their expert, not their job.
Oh, that's your job to make their decisions for them. That makes sense. I understand completely. I think a lot of your arguments for Uncle Buck also apply to Ferris. There's plenty of choices for call-outs. There's plenty of set pieces and toys available. I think the difference would be the just sheer amount of resonance with the people and the games that they would be most interested in.
That's a good point. And Ferris would be my number 2 pick, and Planes would be my number 3. And Breakfast Club would be my number 4 if you want them. And it's like, why don't you do the next 4, Dennis? No, I've done enough. There's enough.
Why don't we just do them in order?
Why don't you do them all? We're going to go
with Ferris. We're going to go with Planes, Trains. We're going to go with Uncle Buck. We're going to follow that with Breakfast Club, then Weird Science. We're going to follow that with, Curly Sue, then She's Having a Baby, then 16 Candles, because I just have no earthly idea what to do with 16 Candles.
I'd put 16 Candles above She's Having a Baby, because at least I know something about the movie. But that's the only reason. All right. Here's one of the things, though, that I bring up with Ferris Bueller that I think is interesting, because you raised some points about like the popularity, and I absolutely agree. And yeah, it's got, if anything, I mean, it's more iconic. If you give people this list of 8 movies, I think the majority of the general public, be they pinball or not, are going to say Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, it's an iconic touchstone movie.
Here's the problem with it. It's the Star Wars effect. If you can't pull off there's just going to be too many people that are going to be upset about what you didn't do with the game, no matter how you did it. Uncle Buck is not going to have that problem. People are not going to be like, darn it, you didn't include the quarter and the rat chewing the mole off the face. It's like, no one's really going to care. With Ferris Bueller,
I don't think
you put in the car, people are going to be mad that you didn't put in the parade. You get the call outs.
Well, to be fair, if you put in, you need to put in those are like some of the big set pieces. If you didn't have
but you can't fit them all
in there,
you can't do them all. It just
no, you can't do them all. But those two, if you don't have those 2 items in there,
okay. So you do those 2, and then they'll be mad that you didn't have the scene with the parking attendants driving the vehicle around. There's always going to be something. You didn't have the jail scene with Charlie Sheen. You get Alan Ruck to do your callouts, and there are people that are mad you didn't get Charlie Sheen to do the callouts, even though his scene was a lot less.
it was like 5 seconds.
There are going to be people that are upset that you don't have the Bueller. You don't put in the Bueller. You didn't get the rights to Ben Stein. They're going to be mad. Look, Tony, you're going to make people mad.
Buck because you don't have the scene where he's asking how good the plumbing is because he's been eating a lot of cheese because he's like a little mouse, like and it causes some issues. I mean, there's going to always be something that's left out that somebody's going to be mad about.
Yes, but Ferris Bueller, it's quicksand. It's the Harry Potter system thing. You make a Harry Potter, you're going to make more people mad than you will make happy. That's why Harry Potter's such a terrible idea. It's just too popular for its own good. Ferris Bueller's too popular, Tony. It's too popular for its own good. Let me use my expertise and protect the people by just giving them Uncle Buck.
You can try that as much as you want, but I don't think
I think people are. I think the listener is sympathizing. Fall into the
same level as Star Wars or Harry Potter. I'm not going to disagree with you that Harry Potter is going to be very divisive if it ever happens. The Star Wars games are divisive, but I don't think that Ferris would fall into the same level. Ferris is going to be much more along the lines of people going, "Wow, this happened," and being happy with what they got. I mean, that'd be right up there with the Last Starfighter pinball machine, which would be, let's face it, if you're making the Last Starfighter into a pinball machine, you've already screwed up because that game needs to be a video game.
No, you could do Last Star. I want a ball lock where you're the little ship, and then when the multi-ball starts, it death blossoms those balls out.
That would be cool.
And you only get that multi-ball once a game because you can only use Death Blossom once.
To have a lot of video modes to really work.
Yeah, well, that can be a discussion for another time. So anyway, folks, write into us with your thoughts. eclecticgamerspodcast@gmail.com, or you can comment on the Facebook post when that goes live, or send us a message, or however you want to do it. But please tell Tony why Uncle Buck is the safe, proper answer.
Because it's not.
I have a feeling I will not have majority support. I don't care. I'm going to pull the elitist card and say it's my job to guide you all on this journey. And trust me, Uncle Buck is what you need. It's what you need.
I think I'm going to go out on a limb with you and say, no, it's not what you need. Ferris would be much
Quote
better.
Quote of 2021 from Tony. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, no.
No.
Well, speaking of limbs, Tony, I think we can finally go to video games.
We can. Video games have had a little bit more stuff going on than pinball.
Not unusual.
Not unusual. We just normally don't cover most of it. I'm going to figure we'll go ahead and open up with the most interesting to me item, which is going to be the announcement of you want to call it the formation or the reformation of Lucasfilm Games?
Yeah, kind of reformation.
Yeah, because there used to be all the Star Wars and games and all of the I mean, there was, Maniac Mansion and Day of the Tentacle and all that stuff.
Monkey Island. And
yeah, they were put out by LucasArts games. And when the Disney bought it out, they kind of went away. And now they're bringing it back as Lucasfilm Games. And while there's still, here's what's interesting. In 2013, Disney signed a deal with EA that gave EA exclusive rights to make Star Wars games for 10 years. But now that Lucasfilm Games exists, they've already announced that Ubisoft Massive, the developers behind The Division and The Division 2, are developing an open world Star Wars game. What's interesting to me is, does this mean that they have modified their deal with EA? Because they have said that there are still Star Wars games coming from EA. Or is this one of those things where it's set up to EA's deal will end in 23 like it's supposed to, and these games aren't going to come out till after that? Or did they just sit down with how bad the press with EA and EA Star Wars game releases have been and basically use that as the stick to force adjustments to what is allowed?
Yeah, we just don't know. I mean, if I were to pick, my guess is that this, like, because we know Ubisoft is working on something now as part of the announcement. And yeah, I just don't think any of the new stuff's going to come out until after the deadline, but that they've already decided it won't be exclusive anymore. And if it's all about when the games get to be released, it's okay for another company to start. But they probably have signed a contract with Ubisoft saying, yes, you will get to release this Star Wars game that you will now start working on so that you'll be ready to go, hopefully, when the exclusivity period ends. That's my guess.
Right. And that was what my guess was, but I just didn't. There's really nothing about it. It's
we don't know.
Kind of just announced. Now, they did also announce from Lucasfilm Games that Machine Games, owned by Bethesda, they're best known. They've made all the new Wolfenstein games. Mm-hmm. They are developing an Indiana Jones game.
That's neat.
With Todd Howard as the executive producer. So I don't know if that still qualifies as neat or less neat, but...
No, I'm still somewhat... I mean, other than Lego, we haven't seen anything Indiana Jones in next to any memory. I remember the 2600 game, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
There was a game that came out after the Lego games, but it was not well received, and I think it was only on certain, like it was like on the PSP or something like that.
Oh, okay. Well, what I can say regarding all of this is I in no way fault Lucas for doing this with, oh my gosh, EA has just, it feels like they've completely mismanaged having this Star Wars exclusivity. I mean, other than the Battlefront games, which are okay, I've played Battlefront 2 somewhat extensively. I tried the demo of Battlefront, the first one. I never ended up buying it. And then there was that one single player game that came out that people really, really liked. And other than that, most of the stuff has been ho-hum.
Yeah. I mean,
I haven't finished Squadrons. I haven't
finished Squadrons either.
I'm just not amazed by it.
But when it's fine.
Yeah, it's all right. It's no Wing Commander.
Well, right. Now, Squadrons, I think the big thing with Squadrons is Squadrons, like the Battlefield games, it's designed to be a team combat game. And the story has just been thrown in there to have a story mode.
Right.
It's not the primary point for it.
Right. Well, I think when people heard about the announcement about all these Star Wars games, they assumed we'd be living the Star Wars universe, not just going into 32 versus 32 battles in the Star Wars universe.
Right, and that's not what EA has delivered. And the thing is that there have been some huge games that were getting good press and looked great that EA canceled.
Yeah, they canned all the exciting ones. I mean, don't get me... I mean, I love DICE. I really like their multiplayer approach. Battlefront 2 is an enjoyable multiplayer game, but that's all you'll turn to it for is multiplayer. That's all it is.
Right. The single player's meh. The big thing is... I think a lot of it anyway, I should say. This is just me opining, is a lot of the games that were in development at one point in time were single player games, and EA stopped doing that type of game.
Yeah, because with multiplayer, you do the microtransaction thing and you make more money.
Right.
That's what I mean, quite I was going to say objectively, but maybe biased or not. That's definitely my view of EA. Is they're like, it's Loot Crate time, baby.
Yeah, and that's exactly how they acted. So I'm glad. I'm just glad. For this.
Even if Ubisoft is going to give us an open world Star Wars game where it's Far Cry, but with that's my fear. It's going to be Far Cry, but reskinned as Star Wars. All Ubisoft games kind of taste the same to me, so
they do.
That's what I'm expecting.
I mean,
but it'll be single player. That's the thing. It'll be a single player experience,
right? So, I mean, I think we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah.
Going on from that, we've got Microsoft had a real interesting 15 hours.
Yeah, that's being kind, Tony.
Because on Friday, as in Friday the 22nd, just a couple days ago, they announced a price increase across the board for Xbox Gold Live.
And that's the service, for those that don't know, for you to be able to play online, you have to be an Xbox Gold member.
Correct.
One per console, I believe. So
yeah.
A family. Right.
But, yeah, there needs to be at least one per console to be able to play online with other people.
Yes.
And 15 hours later, they were like, whoa. We're sorry. That price increase isn't happening. And from now on, if you're playing a free-to-play game, you don't have to have an Xbox Live Gold account to play those games online.
Which would put them in parity with Nintendo and PlayStation on that.
Right. Because Nintendo and PlayStation didn't require you to have their special accounts to go online with stuff like Fortnite or any of those free-to-play games. So...
though that's not active yet. That may take them several months to enable.
Right. Yeah, that's not active yet. They're just working on it.
Right.
I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall, a microwave in the room, when those started coming in, the emails, and it must have been bad. It must have been real to get that fast of a turnaround.
When I heard about it, I was pissed. I was absolutely pissed. They didn't just raise the price. They doubled it. And they didn't add anything. It's like there was no, I remember being annoyed when Amazon raised the price of Prime, but they had been adding new things, other than the 2-day shipping. It's like Amazon Video now is something that I use a lot. So
I use Prime Video more than any other service now.
So, I mean, between Prime Video, I use the Prime access to the music a lot. I get a free Kindle book every month, and I don't tend to read them, but I usually download them because I'm like, okay, I'll grab another thriller. It's free. They added a few things along the way that made it, along with also a lot of the stuff that was 2-day shipping is now free 1-day shipping. So, it was annoying, but I accepted it. This was all right. I get it. They haven't raised the price in a long time, but to all of a sudden go from $60 a year to $120. And then, so I bought two codes, at the 60, could only load one into my account because I'm like, okay, well, I think I'm only going to be using gold for the foreseeable future because I have an Xbox Series X. So that's the console I've gone with for the next gen. And I was just like, why are you doing that? They've been making so many right decisions lately, and they faltered a little bit, I felt, with the console launch, not having any games available, but it was the same thing for Sony. So everyone had the same falter there. So it's like, okay, you've been making right decisions, but how do you sell this as a good idea? And early on, actually, after I bought the cards, a few hours later, I read in there, they had a more detailed news announcement that had clarified, though it hadn't said this in the initial announcement that I could tell, that anyone who was already a gold subscriber got to keep the old rate. So I turned out to be grandfathered in already. So it's like, well, then why are you doubling the price at all on just the new people? Like, are you trying to keep the new people out? And I think this was all... they had it in their heads that this was a way to better incentivize people doing Game Pass Ultimate, but no, it did. I mean, I read some, and I have not researched this myself. I read someone trying to explain it, and they felt that, for console only players, Game Pass Ultimate isn't a deal that you really look at because of you can buy things for just the console version for Game Pass if you're interested, and you can get gold and you do that. And so if gold was more expensive, Game Pass Ultimate comparatively becomes a better deal. But we all remember how much gold was. So it's like, it's a better deal, except that we have memories and we know what we used to pay. And it's like, you haven't done anything to improve Xbox. Like gold setup with like the party chat and all that. It's a really good system. But I mean, I remember transitioning on the 360 from being a PC gamer back into console. And that was a tough pill for me to swallow, was the idea that I had to pay for online. What convinced me was okay was that their online infrastructure is very, very good. But it's not like we're seeing any notable improvement. Like, what are we getting? Ever since Game Pass came out, Games with Gold, the free two games we get every month, they've gotten worse, not better, because all the good stuff's in Game Pass. So it's like, it was just a blunder. It's just an absolute blunder. And if it was motivated to try and get more people to adopt Game Pass, they'd be better just phasing out gold and saying you're going to do Game Pass or something. But
I think that would have probably gone over better than this.
And that was the rumor a few months ago when I think they took away, and maybe it's still gone, but they took away, at least for a while, or said they were going to, the ability to do like 1 year gold subscriptions were taken away from if you weren't already signed up. If you were signed up, you still had them. But if you weren't, that option, I believe, went away for people. And they're like, why is this not out there anymore? It looks like Microsoft is getting rid of gold. And people seem to be like understanding, oh yeah, well with Game Pass, that's where they're making more money off Game Pass than they do gold. And if everyone pretty much is doing it because it's like the no-brainer deal in gaming. The issue for people like me, as I've expressed before, is I don't play a high volume of games. Game Pass is great for a nibbler. Like someone who wants to go in. Like, I know people who go and they will get a game and they will play it for like 20 to 60 minutes and then just move on. And I don't tend to do that. So Game Pass is great for people like that. Game Pass is also great for people that have enough money to afford Game Pass and do that, and normally would only be buying like a couple games a year. And so this gives them access to more than a couple of games, and it probably gives them access to the games they were going to buy anyway. So that's a great deal. But I get so many of my games for my birthday and for Christmas, and it takes me so long to play them because I do so many other things in my life than just tear through video games, that it's just not, it doesn't bring any, all it does is cost me money. Like, I'm not going to take full advantage of it. Not at this point. Maybe if I caught up on everything and instead I had people give me gifts that were not $20 video games, it'd be different. But it's like, what I do currently works best for me. It saves me the most money and keeps me with plenty of games to play. So I just don't need it. Even though it is, I agree, absolutely the best deal.
It is a great deal.
But I need gold.
It is actually right, because you like to play online with other people.
Because I play Overwatch every week. I need gold just for that. If I want to play Battlefront 2, I need gold for that. And I don't want to pay $120 a year to be able to play Battlefront and Overwatch online. I already bought those games.
Yeah, no, and that makes complete sense. And I think that's why they dialed back like they did. They had to. I'm impressed with how quickly they changed course.
And full kudos for that. I have it. I'm not sure this is how it happened, but I just imagine this is how, in my headcanon, this is the reality. Phil Spencer just leg kicked open the door, slam, and it's just like, what are you doing to my division? And all these marketing people are like cowering, like, Phil, we're sorry. We thought we'd get people into Game Pass Ultimate. And Phil's like, I've been working my butt off here, bringing in like 15 new companies to make exclusive deals. We're trying to finally bury Sony in the dirt, and you decide to double gold because you thought it would be a good incentive. You will repeal this deal, and then I will decide whether or not to fire you.
And then he ate one of them.
Yes. Nom. He basically he said he just sucked them into his tummy, and then he just goes Poyo. Because he likes to give a lot of credit to Nintendo. So that's a Kirby reference for those that don't know what I'm talking about.
That was a solid Kirby reference.
You. I thought I did his how he would truly say Poyo. It's like that. So
yeah, no, it was one of those things that by the time I even found out about this, it was already over. Because I didn't read any of the initial news about this until yesterday. The first news I read about it was the news that they reversed themselves. So,
yeah, and they apologized, and so I mean, I think they've minimized the damage. I've never seen a company move that quickly to reverse off of their plan. I mean, we've seen this happen with other companies before. Like I remember when Netflix did their first big pay, but this was back when Netflix was still like doing a lot of the mail you the DVDs sort of stuff, and they were going to price raise, and they delayed it or they lowered the amount or something, and that curried more favor. So yeah, I thought they responded to it really well. I still just couldn't believe they thought it was a good idea in the first place.
It's crazy to me, especially that high of an increase.
Well, they just launched a new console. You need as many new people in now. This is not the time to want to jack the price. Jack the price when we're 5 years in on the cycle and everyone who's adopted has adopted. And then you're like, okay, well, we've got our built-in base. They're probably going to stay with us. That's a relatively inelastic demand, but not when you're trying to, I mean, even with all the companies and everything they've done, they're inherently behind the 8 ball because Sony was in a stronger position last gen and people are inherently favor the system they were already in. That's just how life is. So, because they carry over their trophies, they carry over their friends list, they carry over the ability for backwards compatibility, all that stuff. So it's just, yeah. So thank you for reversing yourself, Microsoft. Try and be a little more thoughtful in the future.
Yeah. Maybe plan a little bit better and think about stuff.
Yeah. Pollo.
So, Pollo. We'll finish up our video game discussion this time around. In a recent interview, Valve co-founder Gabe Newell announced that Valve has games in development that have not been announced yet, but are close to release?
Sure they are. Talk about disappointments. Let's talk about Valve.
Valve they have a history, we'll go with, of trying to perfect games and then just trashing the project. Because Valve makes all of their money from Steam.
Yeah.
So when it comes to actual game development, they'll develop a game, and if it doesn't meet the exact high standards of whoever's in charge at the moment, they'll just dump it. And they've dumped, I don't even know how many games, that a game has been announced, or a game has been seen, or a game has been heard of. They've even shown clips of it, and then, we canceled that project. Now, there have been changes in management in the last year or two that have had people hopeful that it would mean they'd be getting games out. And they did put out Half-Life Alex.
Yeah, the VR thing.
The VR thing. And it reviewed really well. So the question is, what are these games? I can tell you what these games are. There is no Half-Life 3 in here. Don't even dream. That game's at a point where they know they can't put that game out, because that game, if you fired that game up, it ran perfectly on every computer. You could run that game on an Apple IIe or on the most awesome box, and it would run perfectly, and it would be enjoyable, and it would be fun. And when you beat the game, there was $1 million put into your bank account. People would still hate that game, because that's how high the hype has become for that game. The hype for Half-Life 3 has gotten to the point where Cyberpunk isn't even in the same zip code. So there'll never be a Half-Life 3. They just can't do it. Which means now they'll put it out because I said that. But it's one of those things that I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, Valve has put out some good games. But until I actually see them release a game, I'm just not going to be real. I'm not getting my hopes up. No matter what they say they have or how good they say something is going, I'm not going to believe there's an actual game there. until it's at a point where it is playable.
Yeah, I'm not going to speculate on what Valve might be working on. It's too hard to know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, who knows? All right, well, I'm pulling up a list of Valve games. We'll just go over just the last few. I mean, they've put out a lot of good games in the past, but let's just cover the last few. In March of 2020, they put out Half-Life Alyx, which we talked about. It's a virtual reality exclusive Half-Life game. I've heard really good things about it, but it's a virtual reality game, so it's not like it's a major world breaker changer of things.
Yeah, most gamers just don't care.
Right. In February of 2020, they put out a standalone version of the Dota Auto Chess game mode, which was a thing that was real popular several years ago.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it and then realizing it wasn't actually chess.
Yeah. 2018, they put out Artifact. That was their collectible card game. It was based on Dota, of course.
I didn't remember this.
Yeah, it was their attempt to make a Hearthstone. They actually got good people to build it. It was designed by Magic the Gathering creator Richard Garfield.
Oh.
But it was dead by 2019. They had less than 100 concurrent players at that point. It was
wow.
Yeah. In 2016, they kicked out a free VR game for the HTC Vive VR release. It was just a compilation of mini games set in like the Portal universe called The Lab.
Okay.
And then you had Left 4 Dead Survivors, which was released in Japan as an arcade Left 4 Dead game. Don't know nothing about it.
Yeah, I'm not familiar. Well, if it was only released in Japan, I guess that's not surprising that we don't know.
Right. Counter-Strike Nexen Zombies in 2014, a free-to-play zombie shooter. I'd never even heard of it. Counter-Strike released just for Korea in 2013.
Okay. Well, we're going way back now.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's the last big game they released. CSGO in 2012 or Dota 2 in 2013.
When did they release Left 4 Dead 2?
2009 was Left 4 Dead 2. Okay.
Because that team's
Portal
gone.
2 was...
That team now has made a spiritual successor on their own.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're going to see Left 4 Dead 3 from Valve.
No. Portal 2 was 2011. Yeah, Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2, they came out a year apart. They were
that was a big controversy at the time. Huge controversy.
But they've got nothing. I mean, we're starting to talk about stuff like the Orange Box and all that. Right?
Well, and part of the reason why I said I wasn't inclined to speculate about Valve isn't just that they trash games when they don't live up to whatever standard they're applying to them. It's also that my understanding is a lot of their game developers have not enjoyed working for Steam, where they don't get to make games, and they have gone on to other places or formed their own studios to make games. So I don't know what talent they've got left. I mean, it's Valve. They can afford to bring in any talent they want, but to do a pinball analogy, it reminds me of that interview we briefly discussed from Super Awesome on our last episode about Dennis Nordman and how he wants to be at a company that actually makes games. He doesn't want to just sit around on their payroll and wait for his designs to come to fruition. And that's true for video game developers too.
Yeah. And I can understand that. They got into what they're doing to do something, so they'd like to actually do it. So we'll just have to see what comes of this. If there's anything that actually really comes out of Valve.
Yeah,
I'm not holding my breath, but it could be something. Because that's the thing. Valve games are either amazing or terrible. I mean, obviously, because Artifact crashed.
But it might have been a good game. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I really like the Left 4 Dead games. I like the Portal games. Team Fortress 2 is still really popular.
It is. The Half-Life games were all hugely popular. that's just the thing, is they don't have anything recent. So we'll see. We will see.
We would have to wait and see.
And it's amazing how many games that Valve has kicked out were mods.
Well, we made it to the end of this good time. So for those that want to reach out to us about anything John Hughes, Microsoft Gold, what Valve's going to come up with, as we've noted several times during the episode, you can email us eclecticgamerspodcast@gmail.com. You can also message us over at facebook.com/eclecticgamerspodcast.
We're available on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram as eclectic_gamers.
And that's it. We'll be back in a couple weeks. Who knows what strange things will lurk in the hearts of these podcasters at that time. But until then, I am Dennis.
I'm Tony.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.